Hello, and welcome back to our channel. Today, we're embarking on a journey into one of the most influential books in human history, the Bible. But we're not just reading the familiar stories, we're going deeper, exploring the verses that have puzzled scholars for centuries, the messages that might have been lost in translation, and the parts that some believe were intentionally hidden. Get ready to decode the Bible's most shocking hidden messages. First, let's address a fundamental question. Could there really be hidden messages in a text studied by billions? The answer is more complex than a simple yes or no. The Bible wasn't written as a single book. It's a library of 66 texts, composed over 1,500 years by more than 40 authors in 3 different languages: Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek. Every translation, every copy, and every editorial decision throughout history presented an opportunity for meanings to shift, intentionally or not. Let's start with something known as the Bible Code, or the equidistant letter sequence. This theory, popularized in the 1990s, suggests that by skipping a certain number of letters in the original Hebrew text of the Torah, you can find prophetic words and phrases. Proponents claim to have found predictions of historical events from World War II to the assassinations of political leaders, for example, by selecting every 50th letter in the book of Genesis. Some researchers found the Hebrew word for Torah. Is this divine encryption, a statistical anomaly, or something else entirely? Skeptics argue that you can find similar patterns in almost any large text. Like Moby Dick, they demonstrate that with enough data and flexible rules, you can make a text say almost anything. It's a fascinating mathematical puzzle. But whether it's a genuine prophetic tool or a case of seeing patterns where none exists remains one of the Bible's most heated debates. It forces us to ask, is God a mathematician, communicating through complex codes hidden within the holy text? Now, let's move from codes to content, specifically to the books that didn't make the final cut. You might be familiar with the Old and New Testaments, but have you heard of the Apocrypha or the Gnostic Gospels? These are ancient texts that were widely read by early Christians, but were ultimately excluded from the canonical Bible during councils like the Council of Nicaea. Why? The reasons are complex, involving theology, politics, and historical context. Take the Gospel of Thomas, for instance. Discovered in Egypt in 1945, this text is a collection of 114 alleged sayings of Jesus. Unlike the narrative Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, Thomas offers no stories of Jesus' life, death, or resurrection. Instead, it presents a series of cryptic teachings. One famous line says, "When you make the two into one, then you will enter the kingdom." Scholars interpret this as a reference to spiritual unity and inner knowledge, a core tenet of Gnosticism, which viewed the material world as flawed and salvation as achievable through secret wisdom, or gnosis. These Gnostic texts paint a very different picture of Jesus and his message. They often portray him as a mystical teacher of enlightenment, rather than a savior who died for humanity's sins. The exclusion of these books standardized Christian doctrine, but it also silenced alternative perspectives. What if these forbidden gospels contain a piece of the puzzle that was intentionally left out? It's a question that challenges the very foundation of what many believe the Bible to be. The mysteries don't stop with excluded books. Even within the accepted canon, there are passages that are notoriously difficult to interpret and have sparked countless theories. Let's look at the book of Ezekiel. In its very first chapter, the prophet Ezekiel describes a mind-bending vision. He sees a great cloud, flashing fire, and in the center, 4 living creatures. Each creature has 4 faces of a human, a lion, an ox, and an eagleland for wings. Beside temare wheels within wheels, full of eyes that can move in any direction without turning. Above them is a throne, and on it, a figure with a human-like appearance, glowing like fire. For centuries, this was interpreted as a symbolic vision of God's glory and omnipotence. But in the 20th century, a new theory emerged, championed by authors like Erich von Däniken. The ancient astronaut theory proposes that Ezekiel was undescribing a divine vision, but a close encounter with an extraterrestrial spacecraft. The spinning wheels, the metallic gleam, The winged creatures could. These be ancient descriptions of advanced technology, interpreted through a pre-industrial lens. While mainstream theologians and historians dismiss this idea, it has captured the public imagination. It makes us wonder, are we misinterpreting ancient accounts of technology as divine miracles? Another shocking and often overlooked part of the Bible involves the Nephilim. Genesis chapter 6 says, "The Nephilim were on the earth in those days and." Also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown. Who were these sons of God, and who were the Nephilim? The text is incredibly vague. One interpretation suggests the sons of God were fallen angels who intermingled with human women, producing a race of giants or demigods. This story is expanded upon in non-canonical texts like the Book of Enoch, which describes these beings as corrupting humanity and teaching forbidden knowledge, ultimately leading to the Great Flood. The Book of Enoch was highly regarded by early Christians, but was eventually deemed fantastical and excluded from the canon. Why was this story, which explains the origin of evil in a very different way from the Adam and Eve narrative, suppressed? Did it reveal an uncomfortable truth about a divine conflict that early church fathers preferred to hide? This brings us to the most powerful woman in the New Testament, who may also be the most misunderstood. Mary Magdalene. For centuries, she was portrayed as a repentant prostitute, a label that isn't supported by the Gospels. This tradition likely stems from a 6th century sermon by Pope Gregory the Great, who conflated her with several other unnamed women in the scriptures. In reality, the Bible portrays her as a loyal and important disciple. She was present at the crucifixion, and most importantly, she was the first person Jesus appeared to after his resurrection, commissioning her to be the apostle to the apostles. But some Gnostic texts, like the Gospel of Mary, elevate her even further. In this text, she is depicted as a leader among the disciples, possessing a deeper, more secret understanding of Jesus' teachings, which causes jealousy among the male apostles like Peter. Some authors, like Dan Brown in the Da Vinci Code, have even theorized that Mary Magdalene was Jesus' wife, and that they had children, a bloodline that the church has supposedly tried to cover up for 2,000 years. While there's no historical evidence for this claim, it highlights a persistent question. Has the role of women in early Christianity been deliberately downplayed or erased from the official narrative? The story of Mary Magdalene suggests that history, as it's often told, is written by the victors. Finally, let's consider the Book of Revelation, the final book of the Bible. It's an apocalypse, a genre of literature that unveils hidden truths through symbolic and often terrifying imagery. The 4 horsemen, the Antichrist, the mark of the beast, Armageddon. These have become cultural touchstones for the end of the world. But what if we're reading it all wrong? Many scholars argue that Revelation wasn't primarily a prophecy about our distant future. Instead, they believe it was a coded political critique of the Roman Empire in the 1st century. The tyrannical beast could represent Emperor Nero or the Roman imperial cult, which demanded emperor worship. Babylon the Great, the corrupt city destined for destruction, was likely a code name for Rome itself. For early Christians suffering under persecution, this book would have been a message of hope, a promise that even the most oppressive empire would eventually fall before God's ultimate justice. By reading it as a coded message for its original audience, the book transforms from a frightening blueprint of the future into a powerful testament of resistance and faith. In a time of crisis, it's a reminder that context is everything. From hidden codes and forbidden gospels to ancient astronauts and suppressed histories, the Bible is far more than a simple collection of stories. It is a layered, complex, and often mysterious library of texts that continues to challenge and inspire us. These shocking messages aren't necessarily about exposing a conspiracy. They're about expanding our understanding. They invite us to read with a critical eye, to ask difficult questions, and to appreciate the deep historical and cultural currents that shaped this incredible book. The real secret of the Bible might be that its mysteries are what keep us searching for truth, generation after generation. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. What hidden message in the Bible fascinates you the most? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this journey into ancient mysteries, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an exploration. We'll see you next time.